The year was 1925. Paris breathed a sigh after the Great War. Gas lamps cast shadows on cobblestone streets. Rain slicked the avenues, reflecting the city's glitter. Below, the Seine flowed, dark and indifferent. Above it all, the Eiffel Tower pierced the twilight sky. It stood, a monument to a bygone era. People hurried past, collars turned up against the chill. The city was a stage, set for dramas in smoky cafes and opulent hotel suites. Whispers travelled on the damp air, tales of fortunes lost and opportunities seized. In this city of dreams and despair, a man moved with spectral grace. Victor Lustig. His name, like his origins, was an enigma. Photographs showed a figure cloaked in shadow, a glint in the eye. He was a chameleon, a master of disguise. He observed the city not as a tourist, but as a predator. He saw the cracks in Parisian society, the hunger for wealth. The Eiffel Tower became his focus. Paris, unaware of the play about to unfold, with Victor Lustig as the shadowy director. The idea, like many of Lustig's inspirations, arrived with a quiet click, a sudden alignment of observations. He read the newspapers avidly. He listened in cafes. He noted the conversations of businessmen and bureaucrats. France was struggling. The franc was weak. The government was burdened with war debts. Maintaining the Eiffel Tower was a significant expense. It needed constant painting, constant repair. Whispers, some louder than others, questioned its continued utility. Some even suggested in hushed tones that its demolition might be a practical, if unpopular, solution. These murmurs were the seeds Lustig needed. He saw not just a problem, but a golden, irresistible pretext. What if the government, in its desperation, decided to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap? It sounded preposterous, almost laughable. But in the unsettled climate of post-war Europe, with governments making drastic decisions daily, was it truly beyond the realm of possibility? Lustig wagered it was not. He understood that people often believe what they want to believe, or what they are conditioned to expect from authority. The key was to present the unbelievable with an air of absolute, unshakable conviction. The economic despair was his silent partner. To execute such a monumental deception, Victor Lustig needed more than just a clever idea. He needed an impeccable persona. He couldn't simply walk up to a scrap dealer and offer to sell the Eiffel Tower. He needed authority, legitimacy, and an air of unimpeachable government bureaucracy. Thus he transformed himself. He became Monsieur le Directeur Député du Ministère des Postes et Télégraphes, Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. The title was suitably grand, slightly obscure, and perfectly plausible for an official overseeing such a sensitive, albeit fictional, government undertaking. It was a masterful stroke of invention. He acquired the necessary accoutrements of his new identity: fine suits, a leather briefcase, and, most importantly, stationery. He procured, through means best left unexplored, high-quality paper, subtly embossed with what appeared to be official government insignia. He drafted letters, invitations to secret meetings using formal bureaucratic language. Every detail was considered, every word chosen to convey gravity and confidentiality. He understood that the appearance of authenticity was often more persuasive than authenticity itself. The day of the meeting arrived cloaked in an atmosphere of manufactured solemnity. Lustig, as Monsieur le Directeur, had booked a lavish suite at the Hôtel de Crillon. He ensured every detail was perfect, from the refreshments served to the arrangement of the seating, all designed to reinforce his image as a powerful government official. One by one, the 5 scrap metal dealers arrived, men accustomed to negotiating tough deals, yet perhaps unprepared for the sheer audacity of what was to come. They were ushered into the suite, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and professional caution. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Lustig greeted them with a grave courtesy. He was calm, authoritative, his demeanor exuding the weight of his supposed office. He spoke of the difficult economic times, the immense financial burdens facing the French government. He painted a picture of reluctant necessity, of painful decisions made in the nation's best interest. His voice was measured, his words carefully chosen. He explained that the upkeep of the Eiffel Tower had become an unsustainable drain on public finances. Therefore, he continued, after much deliberation at the highest levels, the government had made a secret, difficult decision. The Eiffel Tower was to be dismantled and sold for scrap. A stunned silence likely filled the room. Lustig did not rush the process. He understood the art of the slow reveal, the power of anticipation. After the initial shocking announcement, he allowed the dealers time to process the information, to let their ambition and competitive instincts take root. He knew that one among them would likely emerge as the most eager, the most susceptible to the allure of such a monumental, albeit entirely fictitious, deal. He had planted the seed, now he needed to nurture it carefully. He maintained an air of official gravitas, combined with a subtle hint of personal burden, as if the weight of this state secret rested heavily upon his shoulders. The key to his success lay in the meticulous details. The forged documents he presented were masterpieces of their kind. They included official-looking letterheads, complex contractual clauses, and even counterfeit government seals that would pass all but the most expert scrutiny. André Poisson took the bait. Eager to secure the prestigious contract and perhaps blinded by the sheer audacity of the deal, he not only agreed to Lustig's price for the 7,000 tons of scrap metal the Eiffel Tower supposedly represented, but also paid the substantial bribe Lustig had so delicately solicited. The sum, a fortune at the time, exchanged hands. Lustig, ever the consummate professional, maintained his composure, his demeanor that of a government official concluding a difficult but necessary piece of state business. He provided Poisson with a beautifully forged bill of sale, complete with official-looking stamps and signatures. The deal was done. The Eiffel Tower, in essence, had been sold. Lustig didn't linger. He knew the clock was ticking. Once Poisson attempted to actually begin dismantling the tower, or even made official inquiries, the entire scheme would unravel. With Poisson's money, including the hefty bribe, safely in his possession, Lustig, along with his American associate Dan Collins, made a swift departure. They boarded a train to Vienna, leaving Paris and a very bewildered André Poisson behind. Lustig likely savored the moment, the culmination of weeks of meticulous planning and flawless execution. He had sold a national monument, a feat so outrageous it bordered on the comical, yet he had pulled it off with chilling precision. Back in Paris, André Poisson waited. He waited for the official announcement. He waited for the permits to begin his work. Days turned into weeks. The absence of any police investigation or public scandal emboldened Victor Lustig. The silence from Paris was not just a reprieve, it was an invitation. He had tested the waters and found them surprisingly accommodating to his brand of high-stakes deception. Why settle for one spectacular triumph when another was potentially within reach? The audacity is difficult to comprehend. To return to the scene of such a monumental crime, to attempt the exact same con, required a level of self-belief and contempt for risk that few possess. Lustig, however, was not like few. He was unique in his daring. So, approximately 1 month later, he decided to return to Paris. He re-established his persona. Monsieur le Directeur Député du Ministère des Postes et Télégraphes. He sent out new invitations, this time to a different group of 5 scrap metal dealers. The script was largely the same. The secret government decision, the urgent need for discretion, the competitive bidding for the rights to dismantle the Eiffel Tower. He booked a suite, perhaps even in the same Hôtel de Crillon or one equally grand, knowing the power of atmosphere and perceived authority. He was a master of repetition, but with subtle variations to keep his performance fresh and convincing. He exuded the same air of weary importance of a man burdened with state secrets. This time, however, one of the invited dealers was more cautious, or perhaps had heard faint, unconfirmed rumors. Before committing any funds, this dealer decided to make discreet inquiries with the actual Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. With France too hot to hold him, Victor Lustig set his sights on America. The Roaring Twenties were in full swing, a period of prosperity and opportunity. America was a land of ambition, where fortunes could be made quickly. Lustig arrived with new identities and a repertoire of scams. He continued his career as a high-class con artist. His schemes targeted the wealthy and gullible. One famous scam was the Romanian box. He claimed it could counterfeit $100 bills. Using sleight of hand, he convinced Marx of its capabilities. He sold these boxes for exorbitant sums before disappearing. Lustig's charm allowed him to move in affluent circles. He presented himself as Count Victor Lustig. Fluent in several languages, he added to his mystique. He exploited the American fascination with old-world nobility. Victor Lustig's American dream, built on lies, began to crumble. His counterfeiting operation proved to be his undoing. The U.S. Secret Service, protecting the nation's currency, was a formidable adversary. He was arrested multiple times, but often escaped. Recaptured in Pittsburgh, there would be no escape. The evidence was overwhelming. Lustig was no longer just a European trickster, he was a major American felon. Victor Lustig's story did not end with his death in Alcatraz. It transformed into legend, a cautionary tale whispered in both law enforcement circles and among aspiring tricksters. His name became synonymous with audacious deception, with a level of con artistry that transcended mere criminality and bordered on a dark form of genius. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice left an indelible mark on the history of crime, not for violence, but for the sheer intellectual audacity and psychological manipulation he employed. He understood human nature, its greed, its vanity, its gullibility, and played upon these weaknesses like a maestro conducting an orchestra. The line between genius and deception can at times appear terrifyingly thin. Lustig possessed many qualities often associated with brilliance: meticulous planning, keen observation, an inventive mind, charisma, and an unshakable self-confidence. Had these talents been channeled into legitimate pursuits, he might have become a captain of industry, an innovator, or a diplomat. Instead, he chose a path of elaborate fraud, using his intellect to exploit rather than create, to deceive rather than enlighten. His life serves as a haunting reminder that great intelligence, untethered from ethical moorings, can become a powerful force for mischief and harm. His legacy is complex. On one hand, he was a criminal who caused financial loss and emotional distress to his victims. On the other, there's an undeniable, almost grudging admiration for the sheer scale and creativity of his cons, particularly the Eiffel Tower sale.